Okay, so thank you for joining us today. This webinar is about how to use the child account in Tapestry. My name is Jo Stone and I'm an EdTech demonstrator for the DFE EdTech Demonstrator programme. The programme offers free support to schools, so please go ahead and look at the website. The website is the edtechdemo.ucest.uk site, and there's lots of information on there, so please take a look. But today our webinar is all about the child's account, as I mentioned, and we're lucky to be joined by Jess Mason today. Jess is a Year 2 teacher at Kibworth Primary School, and she's using the child account with her class, and she's kindly offered to come and share her experience of using this and explain how the children are enjoying it too. So Jess and I are going to talk about the following points. We're going to cover things like what the child account actually is in Tapestry, how we set it up, what we need to do before we use it with the children, how should the children be using it, and can they use it at home, and then why it's important for the children to have their own accounts as well in Tapestry. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Jess now and let you start presenting. Thank you, Jess.
Fantastic, thanks, Jo. I'm just going to share my screen with you, so just bear with me 1 second. Okay, can you see that?
That's great, yeah, thank you.
Perfect. Okay, so I will start with the first question of welcome to Tapestry, the child account and EYFS. So what is the child account? So the Tapestry child account gives the children the chance to put their own learning journey into their own hands. It allows children to see their own observations and activities, as well as making their own reflections to show off and shine with their learning. The account gives the children a personal ownership to be proud of what they have achieved and what they have learnt. It's a great reflective tool for them as they often learn from each other. So as well as responding to feedback from the adults and from me as the teacher, it gets them to think about how they can progress further with their learning. It also gives them an opportunity for the connections to be made through the parent and teacher and child partnership. So that's between school and home, and enables the parents to see how best to support their child at home and vice versa, what works best for us in school and how to support them. What to do before it's used with the children. So the first thing is to make sure that the individual accounts are set up. So within your class folder, every child has their own icon and their name. And I like to check personally that all the children are there, because from working from past experience, it only kind of shows the children's first names. So the last year, I actually had 2 children that had the first name that was the same. So we just had to check that when they clicked on it for the first time, that they saw where their name was, and actually it had been done in alphabetical order. So that's just a hint for future reference to be aware of, so that the other child then had to make sure that she scrolled down a little bit further to find her name. I also made sure that my children's logins were accessible to all of them, just simply by laminating them, just so that there weren't flappy bits of paper that the children would lose. Just then that logins, for when that you give them out to the children, and they can keep them either in their pencil case or in their trays. It was just easier for them to have that ownership of their username and password, and just an easier way of them to have that. If teaching a whole class lesson with the iPads, I made sure that the work, for example, the piece of writing that they had to reflect on, it was already set out on the tables ready for the children, just to make that process a little bit easier for them to find it, as they're still very little. It just made giving out instructions for them slightly easier, and a more controlled approach when there's 30 of them all trying to do the same thing at once. It just made it a little bit easier to kind of control it in that way. A very simple but useful instruction is to make sure that all of the iPads are charged up, as we all know that technology has a little bit of a habit of letting us down. So it's just a good reminder to us all to always make sure that there's a couple of spare ones, and that they are all charged up and that they're connected as well, because the last thing that we want to happen is for them to run out of charge when the child is in the middle of reflecting or using the Tapestry account for them, and then it just goes for them. But the key message, I'd say, what I found really useful to do with it is just to have a play around with it yourself. So logging on not only as the teacher, but actually having a play around on the child account yourself. So log in as a child and just to become familiar with how they would actually add in an observation, and seeing what they can see rather than seeing it from an adult's account, just makes it a little bit easier to understand, like I say, to see what the children are seeing and how best to teach them how to use it as well. Just a little reminder. Next one, how should it be used with the children? So in year 2, we found that working with small groups first was the best way forward, and probably be useful for EYFS as well, having that small controlled group. It just helps the process to be a little bit clearer and more effective for the children and the adults that are leading it. So then we found after a few guided sessions with the individual groups, these children then came more confident with the tasks that they then needed to complete, and then could help others that were a little unsure. This then leads to them becoming better with that whole class, supporting their peers, and the independent reflections are easier because those children who have worked in the smaller groups can then support the others around them and answer any questions that they have. This links to the children working best in learning partners. For example, I quite often have a partner A and a partner B, so one of them goes first and the other one can either watch them and support them that way, and then vice versa, partner A can work with them and they can just kind of do it together but on their individual accounts. I've shown an example on this slide of how the learning process happens, and these are the steps that go through, but I believe Jo will be covering a little bit of this a little later on in the webinar. So that's just some of the key steps to follow when it should be used with the child. These are just some examples of children's work, how they have reflected on and done this all by themselves in year 2. So this is a piece of our relearning that we have done. So the child has taken a picture of their work, so this is a celebration of their learning and how they've reflected on, and then this was their notes, so they've actually typed all this in themselves. So I gave them the stem sentence of "we are learning," and then they had to finish it by typing on the iPad after taking a picture of. So they've actually written "we are learning about how Christians celebrate Christmas," and they've independently managed to upload and suggest some of the examples that they've learnt. So they've given examples of how they sing carols, they have a feast, they celebrate by creating a Christingle, putting up their Christmas trees and having Christmas dinner with their family. So this child in particular, you can see that they've uploaded that picture. That's their work that they've finished at the end of the lesson, and this is what they've gauged from it. That's what they've typed out as well. So I thought that was a nice little example just to share with you all. Another example, this is a piece of literacy learning from their independent writing. They've gone back and reflected, and you can see they've actually pointed to what they've shown you in their notes of that they can find a coordinating conjunction in their writing. So that was our specific aim, our learning outcomes for that piece of writing, was that we'd like the children to include coordinating conjunctions in their writing, so they had to use and, but, and, or, and this child has gone back and reflected by taking a picture of them pointing to where they've actually used or in their learning as well, which is another really good example of how the children have used it in year 2. The next question is, can it be used at home? In a simple answer, yes, it can. Really, really easy. And it's a great effective tool to introduce as that ongoing school and home partnership. And we've really found that journey from EYFS year 1 and coming into year 2, how much of a really good reflective tool, and even that conversation, the communication between home as well, it has been really, really good. So as the teacher, you can decide whether or not you wish for the child's journal to be used at home. So you can decide whether you would like them to use it at home or whether you'd just like to use it in school. Then you're able to manage how that they log on. So this is usually completed through a parent or guardian that has been assigned to the child's account. So they've always got control over that. They have to set it up first by using their own details, which then links that to the account. So they've always got that control. So then once they've logged in as the children then use their own name and individual passwords, which they can use in school as well, to access their own learning journey. Then as soon as the children and parents can see the learning that takes place in school, it automatically creates that immediate online relationship, which is really good because it creates those links with parents and it gives them that opportunity to build an effective connection through that partnership, and parents are then best can see how to support that children at home, which is really good. And it also means that being online, it's great for those parents who are always on the go. So they can access it on their phone, on their tablet, on a computer, or however they wish, which is best for them. It just gives them that chance to see what the children are doing in school, or if they can't quite catch you at the end of the day, quite often they'll just upload a quick message to you. And it just gives them that link to being able to confidently support either their learning or passing on messages that take place in school, particularly because then they can see feedback that's either given from me as a teacher or even how their child has reflected on that specific piece of work that they've chosen to upload and be proud of themselves, which is really great. We then have, why is it important for the children to have their own account? So I believe that it's really important for every child to have their own account. It's just because it's something for them to have that personal ownership of, so they can see their own observations and activities, which gives them that chance to have that real reflection on what it is they've really learnt about and something that they can be proud of, and they can see that they've achieved it, which is always really nice for them to take that ownership of themselves. I think as well, as we've used it more of a reflective tool, so as the children are a little bit older, they can use it themselves. It just shows their experiences of how they've learnt from each other, as well as responding to the feedback from adults and thinking about how their next steps can continue. It also allows them to work alongside their parents, so actually they can show them their parents at home and their carers what they've learnt in school, and then that leads to the improvements in learning, so parents can pick up and see maybe where the child made some mistakes or how to support them further, which is great. What are the benefits of using the child's accounts for the class teacher? So I have really enjoyed teaching the children to use this blended learning approach. It's a new challenge for me. It's a new challenge for the children. The children show so much excitement to reflect on their work, particularly when the iPad comes out, and it just gives them that real opportunity to be proud of what they've achieved as well. I like to get the children to kind of use a star and a wish approach. So this is something for them to think about. A star is something that they're really proud of, what they've achieved in that piece of work. And then a wish for them, maybe what their own next steps are, what they need to improve on, how they can make their learning better. This just then, like I say, gives them that ownership and the chance to put their own learning in their own hands. And it's been so lovely just to see how our children have grown from using it in September, how they've all become so much more independent with it, and they can just go up and take a picture and then reflect it, and then their parents can comment back from what it is that they've uploaded. And as finally, the main point is, from what I said at the very beginning, is I just believe using Tapestry for the children, it's a chance for them to put their own learning journey in their hands, and just to show what they've achieved and how they can be really proud of it. So yeah, I think that's the end of what I was going to say on it, from kind of my point as a Year 2 teacher, and how my children have definitely benefited from it. I don't know if there's any questions that have popped up in the chat, Jo.
Not at the moment, Jess, but I can say You've mentioned obviously from a year 2 perspective what it's like, but I just wondered, how would you see it working in EYFS? I know you said sort of you as year 2 you kind of work with it whole class and then sort of partner work, but how would you see it moving forward for EYFS practitioners that maybe haven't used it before?
So I think that EYFS practitioners that haven't used it before, for those, maybe for your more able children, if they wanted to introduce it to themselves, for the children to reflect on it, or even it's great for the adults to take pictures of the observations that they've carried out with the EYFS children, and something that they can see that they've met with their milestones and things, to create that communication with the parents, so the parents can see that they're either on track or something that they've really stood out on. They can either a piece of work or something in the role play area that's a child is really engaged with, or something like that. It's good to create those observations like that, I would say, for those practitioners.
And would you say probably bringing it in maybe sort of spring to summer term, would you say?
Yeah, I would say it depends how they want to use it, whether it's more of a communication tool or whether you want to show it for observations as evidence and things. So I would say if you're going to use it for evidence, I would probably start from like the autumn term, just so you've got that evidence of what the children are achieving. But then from a communication tool, I would say, like you say, yeah, like the spring term would be better to then introduce that in kind of later on in the term.
Yes, especially I suppose to get used to the child account. I suppose autumn term they get used to Tapestry in
Yeah.
its own right, and then yeah, sort of maybe spring term. No, that's great. Like that, thank you. That was so informative. Lots in there.
No
And
problem.
nice to see the children's comments as well and their work.
Yeah, absolutely. Just seeing obviously from how they've used it from EYFS through to year 1, and actually now our children are using it themselves, and like you say, reflecting on what they've done, and they were able to type all of that out themselves. So it just shows you how far they can actually come with it as well, which is brilliant.
And actually thinking about that, the video side of it, are you using the videos? Yes.
Yes, so we use the video, so our children, not only can they reflect and type in it themselves, we've actually also been taking videos of them speaking and recording themselves. So instead of typing it, they actually reflect on their learning just by having a conversation, either in partners or I'll hold the camera up to them, and they've just been verbalising what they've learnt from it, and how they can move forward in their own next steps.
That's brilliant. That's great. It's nice to hear that the video is being used as well, because I know when I think when you first start off, it's always sort of tempting just to stick with the photograph. It's slightly easier, isn't it? But I suppose for oracy skills, the video
Absolutely,
really
yeah, presenting.
is powerful, isn't it? Yeah. Right. So thanks for that, Jess. I'm just going to see if I can upload my PowerPoint now. Let's see if it works for me. Hopefully it won't be too slow. You never know with these things, do you? Probably should just do it straight from the screen rather than from PowerPoint Live, but we'll see how it goes. Now, I was just thinking on this PowerPoint, there is a video clip that I won't show, but I might show it at the end if there's time. So I was just going to say, is that showing, Jess? Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Brilliant, thanks. Okay, so there looks like there's a lot of slides on here, but actually you'll see they kind of flow from one to another. It's not too long. So what I wanted to start with here is just looking at the Tapestry website here, and just show that where you can actually see where the child login button is on that first initial page. And I just wanted to say that before you actually go ahead and start thinking about using the child account in school, you will probably need to just get approval from SLT. Just make sure that they're aware of the changes that you want to put in, because they might need to change and update policies that are linked to the permissions set around Tapestry. So you'll need to discuss how you're going to use the child account with your head teacher and your team as well, that you're working with, so that they understand which documents to alter or what information parents will require, and maybe what workshops you'll need to put in place for parents so that they understand how to use not only Tapestry but also the child login account as well. So it's just worth thinking about there in terms of that. This is the video clip I'm talking about. This is nice because it just gives you a nice overview of the child account. And what's nice, as you know, with Tapestry is they've got lots of video clips out there on YouTube, actually on their website too. They're very good at informing people how to use it. So I won't show this right now, but if there's time at the end, I'll come back to it and just show you. It's a very quick clip, but it just sort of covers briefly what the child account actually is. So before you start using Tapestry, what you need to be aware of as well, and I'm sure you probably are aware of, is the fact that there's access to the how-to videos on YouTube, but also the Tapestry encyclopedia as well, which I've just pointed out there on the slides, because sometimes I think because the button's at the bottom on that screen, it's sort of hidden and people sort of whisk past it quickly and forget that they can go onto that and access just a wealth of information. And again, this is nice because it does talk about the child account on here. So if this video clip today is not enough, please go and have a look at these, the encyclopedia and the forums that are out there, which are really useful. So you can see here there's a whole section on enabling and setting up the child account and how to log in. It's as I say, reading through that, it makes it really easy to know what to do. You can also access support as well in Tapestry by going into the control panel area. So, and also looking at the help and tutorials there. So this is great because there's a whole section again on how to use the child account and how to set it up. And it's very easy, an easy read. So when you click on that, you can see again, you can just go inside and it brings up another window with all the help areas in, and they're all the links there to how you can use the child account, and they've kind of tried to cover every sort of question you might have about it there. So lots of great advice on from Tapestry themselves. So when we started using it, we wanted to enable, obviously, and set up the child account features. So when you're doing this, if you go into the control panel on Tapestry and then go to the features tab, as you can see here, you can then enable the child login accounts by clicking on this green button here. And then when you do that, it then allows you to be able to change the child login settings, the child permissions, relatives permissions, which is what Jess mentioned, and also staff permissions based around the child login. And this is what I mean about talking to SLT about it and just making sure that people are aware that the permissions are changing and it's allowing people to do different things, and it's giving children access to their own Tapestry account outside of school. When they're at home, they can access it as well. Tapestry have thought about this very carefully, and it is very safe, but it's just making you aware that you need to get the settings right and the permissions right when you're setting this up behind the scenes within Tapestry. So here you've got the settings in the control panel again. If you go to settings, you can go down to the child login section there again. And this is then where you can change the user permissions. So you can change the user permissions for the staff here, relatives, and for the child. So that's the section that you need to look at when you are setting this up behind the scenes. So creating that login page for the actual class itself and creating the passwords, again, once you've sort of set up your permissions, is really quite straightforward. If you go into the child account tab at the top here, you'll see this tab here which says show class or group login. If you've already set up the pages, when you click on that tab, the pages will appear, the classes will appear. But if you haven't got a class showing, then you just go to the create a page for a new class or group, and that will enable you to then go to this screen, and you can then start setting up your class page for all your children. And the class page is really nice because it allows the children to go straight to their classroom area, find a picture of themselves, and then go into their account this way. So it's really a nice way of doing it. So you can give the whole page, the whole class page, a picture if you want to, or you can just leave that blank. Or you can put the children's pictures in there if you want to. Depends on what sort of permissions you want to set there and what GDPR permissions you've got set up in school. You can also then decide whether you want to show just their first name or both names, or not, just their picture. It's completely up to you there. So number 2, that arrow pointing to the permissions there is what you need to look at next. And then after that, you can also think about how you want to set up the passwords, what sort of permission you want to give the children, what access you want to give them. So how they can view their password when they're typing it in is what number 3 is, that section there. And then you click on the next button, and it takes you to actually setting up what type of password you want to give them. So here, this is quite a strong password, but quite a tricky one for, I think, EYFS year 1, year 2. So I think we decided as a trust that it would be nice to actually give the children just a 4-digit number to be able to log in, because it's easy to remember. And I think you'd agree with that, Jess, wouldn't you? I think that's what you're using, and that works quite well.
Yes, absolutely. Our children just have the 4 digits, and you can see now actually some of them are memorising them, so they do know it, so they don't actually need their password slip anymore. They can just memorise that and log in on their own accord, which is amazing.
Yeah, just gives them that independence, doesn't it? So that section's really nice. And then once you're happy with whatever sort of setting you want for that password, then you click on the next one, and it will just take you to how your page will appear. It also gives you a link to access to the link for that page, and then you click finish, and then your class page is all set up. Then what you want to do is, so that you can see that class login page, if you go to the child login at the top here, they will then go to this page. And as I said before, when we're on this page, if you go to show the class, it will take you to the classes that you've actually set up and their pages. So, and if you want to obviously add more, you can do, as you can see here. Now I've covered the class names up here, obviously for data reasons, but underneath the blue boxes there, they would be the class names. And this is just showing you that there's 3 classes set up here in for the child accounts. And as a teacher, this is really nice because you've got the permission here to actually turn the logins on or off from this point. So if you found that children were accessing the page when you didn't want them to, you could turn that off straight away by just clicking on that yellow turn off button there. And that gives you reassurance as a teacher that children can't do anything that they shouldn't be, or if they have done, then you can turn it off straight away and go in, change it, and then give them permission again to go in. So you've got full control there as the teacher, and it's just showing you that there when it's turned off, what that looks like. So that this is very much behind the scenes, and this sort of setting up stage for the Tapestry child account. So then what we do is, you can see here I've covered this up again, but this will give you the class name again, tell you whose class this is, and then you've got options to give to the children as to how they go into that class page. Now, Jess, I think you already spoke about this, but you use QR codes, don't you, to access this? And this is where you set that up. So on this page, it gives you the option there to use a QR code, but you can use alternatively magic words if you want to, or a magic link. And I do mention the magic link at the end just to give you an idea of how you might use it with Teams as well, if you wanted to put Tapestry inside of Teams classroom later on. So once that QR code is set up, then then, as Jess said earlier, then the children would just zap that code and it takes them straight to their class page. Now, if you're not using the class QR code, then another way to do it is by just going to the child login here. So clicking on that tab in Tapestry, and then it takes you, now this is the page that the children will see when they click on that, and they'll then read their class name. So underneath that blue tab there are the names of the classes. So they would go and click on their class name there, if they would obviously see their name, and then that would take them to their class. And if you decided to put the children's pictures on the class page, then you'd see the pictures of the children, the photographs of them, and you'd also see under the blue boxes here the child's name. The children then just find their name and they click on it, and then, as you can see here, so imagine that is one of the children, they want to go to their account, they found their name, and then it takes them to this login page here. They just put their 4 digits in, their 4-digit code into the password box here, and then they click login. So it's as easy as that for them. And you can see then they can just check to see if they've got their password right or not. And then they log in and it takes them to the observation page. And this is where they can put in their own observation of what they've been doing in their lesson. And as Jess said, that's where they will put their reflections in and talk about their learning and their work by clicking on that add observation button there. So as we've already mentioned too, obviously you can give the children access at home as well. And again, you go into the child's login button here and give parents access. Again, in that parental permission section, you can add this. And so when the parents log into Tapestry, they will then see their child's account here as well. So they will click it when they click on the child's name, their child's name, it will go to this page. The children will see this at home, and then again they will put their password in here and they'll be able to log in at home and put in again their own observations. So if they've been doing any work at home and they wanted their teacher to see it, they could access the child account and upload it for their teacher there, which is quite nice because it's not the parent doing it, it's the child. As Jess was saying, it's nice to see those responses, isn't it? Just to as a teacher. And then you can see as well, if you need any support on that, the child tutorials page, you know, there's access and help there for that section if you do need help. But as Jess showed here, this was Jess's class last year. There's 3 children here, and you can see they've got their workout ready, and they use the tablets to take photographs, make videos of their work, and then they upload it to Tapestry. But they're in full control, and that's what's so nice about this. And as I say, not just for the children, but for the teacher and for the parents as well. And I think the conversations that teachers have now with parents because of this too, it really triangulates the learning, doesn't it, Jess?
Yes, it does.
So,
yeah.
And as Jess mentioned as well, for blended learning, it's great. So when you're going in for blended learning, the children in the easiest way to do this is to set up the QR code and have the QR codes in the classroom. So the children would use an iPad or a tablet, they zap the QR code and it takes them to their class page. They then see this observation button that they'll go into. And when they go into the observation, they can then add the title to what they're going to be talking about, which piece of work they're going to put in, whether it's maths, English, topic. They can then add their own notes of how they felt during that lesson, what they've learnt and what they liked about it. And then this is the button that allows them to add the pictures and the videos or documents alongside their observation, and then they click on the save button and then that's saved to their account area. And again, it's great because they can then share that at home as well, and teachers and parents can comment on what they've put. Now this is just showing you that I think, and as Jess said, it's nice to work with smaller groups initially just to get the children used to how to use this. way of learning, and then feed it in so that they're becoming more independent throughout the year, so that they really understand how to use this. And again, to use technology alongside their learning is a great way to do it. Now, I mentioned earlier about using the magic code. Now, if you wanted to put Tapestry into Teams, what you can do is just go back to this login section here. And when you go into the class, you've got something called a magic code that you can access. And when you then click onto the class name, you can get the magic link, which is here, just at the bottom there. And that magic link can be copied. So you can copy that magic link there. And then when you go to Teams, you can add this into the Teams area at the top. So if I go to the plus symbol in Teams, it would then take me to the add a tab section. I could go to the website tab, click on that, and then this window appears, and I can copy that URL into this section here. And then when I do that, it's saved as a tab at the top so that you can then access the class instantly. So it takes the children straight into their class login page on Teams, and they can then put their 4-digit code in and go into it that way as well. So Tapestry is very versatile. It can be used alongside Teams as well, which is great to know, because as they're transitioning from year to year, from EYFS to year 1 to year 2, then to year 3, they've got that understanding of how this all pieces together, and it works nicely, because obviously in our schools the children use Tapestry in EYFS and Key Stage 1, but then transition to Teams in year 3. So it's nice to have that working side by side there. We mentioned as well that it's nice to sort of introduce the parents to it by doing parent workshops. Obviously, at the moment, that's very tricky. Face-to-face is always ideal, but if you could do, you know, sort of Teams workshops, just to show parents how to use this login child account on Tapestry, that would be great. I know, again, it's not always easy, but I think just to, you know, if you get as many parents interested and do a virtual one, that might help. And then again, when we're back in school, try to do maybe a morning or an afternoon workshop where parents could come in and work alongside their child to see how it works, so they can get used to it as well, and they can appreciate, you know, what's going on and have a really good understanding around it. It always works best when, as we know, when it's face to face. Now, in Discovery Schools Trust, we've got a bit of a progression map for how we put blended learning into place. We use Microsoft Office 365. So this shows how we sort of want to incorporate and introduce those elements of Office 365. And this is a year 1 example here. But for EYFS, year 1 and year 2, it's the same. In the autumn term, sort of spring term, depending on how quickly we can sort of get the children used to being at school and embedded. Introducing the child account is probably a really nice idea to do there. If you can't do it with the children, then try to do it with parents, as I say, just so that they can get used to it, and then maybe work with their child at home to integrate it there. And then if not, depending on what year group you're in, you know, you might bring it in the summer term, as Jess and I discussed earlier on. But wherever you do bring it in, it's nice to do it so you are including the parents as well, just to make the process and the journey a little bit easier with it. At the beginning, as I say, I did mention that there is a nice YouTube channel for Tapestry, and again, it does talk about the child account. But I hope that was useful, and there was enough information there. If you do have any questions, please pop them into the chat bar. Jess and I are more than happy to answer those. I will pop my email address into the chat bar in a minute in case you think of any questions afterwards. But I think, is there anything else you want to add to that, Jess?
No, I don't think so. No, nothing more to add from me.
I think, yeah, I think it was quite very comprehensive what you covered anyway there. So I think that just leaves me just to finish by saying that the next webinar that we are running is on the 11th of January. And it's about using Microsoft Teams with your class in Key Stage 1. And we're going to be joined by Emily Hainsworth at Dane Mill Primary School, who is going to talk about her experience with that. And if you're interested in finding out more about EdTech and blended learning, then please go to the Discovery Schools Trust website or the EdTech Demonstrator site to find out what the next block of webinars will be for 2022. I'd just like to finish by thanking Jess again for taking the time to talk to us this afternoon, and thank you for joining us as well on this webinar. If you do have any questions, we're more than happy to sort of stay online for a little longer. And as I say, I will put my email address in the chat bar now so that you can contact me, and if you have any questions for Jess as well afterwards, I can forward those on to Jess so that you can ask those. I'll just paste that in and send that now. But thank you very much.